What if the brands we trust and the products we buy are actually contributing to the very crisis we are trying to solve? Today, we're exploring this question with a guest who's talking consumerism, corporate power, and the climate crisis directly. Maren Costa is a climate justice and workers' rights advocate, currently serving as the U.S. advisor at workforclimate.org, where she empowers tech employees to push back against big tech's growing influence. She's also featured in the Netflix documentary Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy, where she highlights the role of companies in continuing unsustainable practices. The film reveals how big brands manipulate us to keep buying more, waste more, and continuing unsustainable practices. I encourage all of you to check out that documentary. With over 20 years in tech leadership roles at Amazon, Microsoft, and Adobe, Maren co-founded Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, which helped push Amazon to sign its climate pledge and create the Earth Fund. After being fired from her activism, Maren sparked national attention and legal action. She also led initiatives at Microsoft and ran for Seattle City Council in 2023 on a platform of climate justice and workers' rights. Maren believes our biggest problems, like climate change and inequality, are caused by unfair systems and that real change comes from collective action. In today's conversation, we will explore her journey as an advocate, the insights she gained from the documentary, and practical ways we can all take part in creating a healthier planet and society. Let's dive in. You are listening to Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast, where we explore different ways to boost our well-being, live a more fulfilling life, and protect our planet. Join me as I chat with inspiring people and professionals from all over the world, uncovering strategies for improving our lifestyles and nurturing our precious planet. I am Juan, and this podcast is proudly brought to you by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, my digital training company that cares about your career and personal development. I am passionate about making the world a better place, so if you share my enthusiasm, this show is for you. Together, we can steer towards a healthier, happier life while leaving a positive footprint on our beautiful Earth. Join me as we explore how being healthy, happy, and caring for our planet are all connected. Hello, Maren, and welcome to the Health, Happiness, and Planet podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
Wow, the first time I saw you was when I was watching a documentary on Netflix, and it was a very insightful documentary. When I've seen all the things that they covered, I was like, wow, this is just like the perfect scenario for inviting somebody to this podcast. So before we dive into the details, maybe we just start from the beginning. Yeah? Can you share maybe with us your personal journey and what inspired you to become a climate justice advocate and champion for environmental change?
Yeah. Where do I start? Really, the climate journey started probably in 2014, maybe when I had two little kids close in age. And so I was under the wave for a few years, just not even being able to, and working at Amazon at the same time in this huge job and just zero bandwidth. But as they got a little older and I kind of was able to poke my head up a little bit, it was like, wow, like all of these other things that I've cared about and fought for in my life, like women's rights. I was a huge feminist coming out of college, and ecofeminism, which ties into the climate. And then ethical AI was a big concern, obviously being in big tech. But I kind of came to this conclusion that, if we don't have a planet to live on, none of this other stuff matters. So I decided I'm at Amazon, which is like the poster child company for the worst you could possibly be on climate justice. And I decided
selling more and more and more things that we might not even need.
I know, yeah, totally. Yeah. The consumption that they push, their business model, which is flying things from as far away as they could possibly be in individual plastic mailers in the shortest amount of time possible. It's just, and they used to say at first to themselves, we used to say and believe that e-commerce was going to be greener than regular commerce because it was one van going to everybody's houses instead of everybody's cars going to the store. And that might have been true for a minute, but Amazon is now contracting with so many drivers that there's no way that they're organizing those schedules over all of these different contractors. And you can see it yourself when van drives through your neighborhood 4 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's definitely not greener. I think we all know that by now.
And on top of it, I think that there's even the effect where people think, oh, that's probably more green. And hey, it's even so easy. Then suddenly they see at the end of the year, they consumed more products than they would have actually consumed just in the regular way of going to the shop and purchasing something.
Absolutely. Impulse purchases have gone up 72% since 2020.
Wow.
We have enough clothes to clothe the next 6 generations. We already have enough clothes.
Yeah.
And then people are buying clothes. And of course, fast fashion has become this massive industry. They're buying twice as many clothes and using them half as long,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so it's just become a monster of its own. So anyways, I decided to throw my whole weight behind climate. I decided I'm at Amazon. What can I do here? If I could make change here, it could have a global impact. So I started to think about ways that I could push Amazon to be more climate friendly. Of course, it didn't work very well, especially when I was asking for permission, hey, here's a great idea. Why don't we do this? No, because that's going to impact profits by whatever little amount. And there was just no give, and I realized I was Amazon's first principal user experience designer. And I had made global change for Amazon, which just equaled profit for Jeff Bezos. It didn't make any change in the world, And so I was really naive, and I finally figured it out that I wasn't going to get anywhere by asking them to be better. So then I started organizing with my colleagues. That's when we started to gain some real traction.
Yeah, and I think you were the founder of the Amazon Employee Climate Justice, correct?
Yeah, as co-founder, yep. There was a handful of us that got together, and the first thing that we did is file a shareholder resolution asking Amazon to have a climate plan. And this is kind of a known tactic where, if you're shareholders, which of course tech workers always are because we get paid in stock, so we were kind of valuable employees and shareholders. And we thought, perhaps, at least it would bring attention to the issue. And it did. It didn't pass, of course, but that was just kind of the start of our pressure.
It's almost like seeing that drop of water on the stone. Yeah. So you don't see the effect right away, but you know that if you just continue, and then they're like, okay, it's not stopping.
Yes. I love it because I'm currently going to speak at Harvard in a week, and I'm using that drop metaphor. It's sort of more the drop becomes the ripple becomes the wave kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And I've been thinking about how if the bathtub is like filling up all around the world and it feels like nothing's happening. But boy, when that overflows, if it's coming from all of these different pockets all around the world, it's going to be a tsunami. And I'm so excited for that moment. And I think we're close.
Wow. And what have you seen while you were still at Amazon and when you started this initiative? Has there been any impact that you saw before you left?
Oh, yeah. Before I left, definitely. So we had that shareholder resolution, and then we took that demands and everything that we had written out in the shareholder resolution and posted it online. And first we asked all of our tech worker colleagues if they wanted to sign it. And once we had at least 1,000 signatures, we published it online. We told everyone we won't publish it until we have 1,000 signatures so that nobody's out on the dance floor by themselves. But we got to 1,000 really fast, and then it went almost to 9,000. And I think that's when Amazon really started to think, okay, we're going to have a choice. Do we want to kind of piss off 9,000 of our best employees, or do we want to maybe at least pretend like we're making movement here? And so they did kind of do a little, we got a little win, which was they announced shipment zero, which was like by 2030, 50% of our shipments will be net zero. But of course, between now and 2030, their shipments could double. And then they did 50% of that, and we haven't earned anything. They always do things like that where it sounds good on paper, but and so we were like, no, that's not good enough. And so then the annual shareholders meeting happens. They happen once a year. All these big corporations. I had no idea until I started doing this, but we showed up, and there's always press there because maybe Jeff Bezos will be there and whatever. And we brought all of our employees. We were all wearing white T-shirts with our badges really displayed. The press was there. We had speakers and signs and banners. And that created a big ripple. And that's when the press started to pick up our story, so that now we were changing the narrative, because every time Amazon was mentioned in the press, it would be like, well, Amazon says this, but this group called Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, they say this. And Amazon says this, but the employees say this. And it was, so that was big. And then and then the global climate strike of 2019 came around. Yeah. And we organized 3,000 workers to walk out for that. And we actually announced it a few weeks ahead that we already had 1,500 workers ready to walk out. And I think that's when Amazon really realized this was not going to look good for them if they didn't come out as having something. I mean, they were way behind everybody else, and they're the worst ones. They should be leading, And so they announced their climate pledge on the day of the walkout.
Yeah.
And of course, now they're all walking back on these pledges, but that's another story.
Yeah. It's always to do what's right exactly at that moment. But if nobody's looking anymore, then let's do something else again.
Right. And especially when we're trying to build the arms race for AI. And now we have to put all of our resources into that. And we need oil and gas to do that. They're not ready to piss off the oil industry and start saying anymore. Yeah. We're trying to get away from you guys.
Yeah, so it's really, if I think about that saying that goes out of sight, out of mind. Mm-hmm. So if they do not see people doing certain pressure on certain things, then, okay, I think that's now over. Maybe now let's just move over and see what else we can do. That's the next priority on our agenda. And if people start making too much of a rowdy there, then they say, too many people are looking, so now let's do something here. So it's always like patchwork, but never doing something right.
It's the attention economy and intentional, like even with the documentary, like externalizing all of these consequences of our consumption we don't see it. We buy that $2 t-shirt and we think, wow, I saved money. It's not in our face the way it is for the entire global South, who is paying the price for our consumption.
Exactly.
The real price. And that's what the documentary did so well.
That's right. And sometimes I think that there's even two prices to it. There's the price for, first of all, creating that product, because you have to have all that resources and everything to create it. And then the consumer only sees that little window where they're just consuming that product for that little time, for that moment. And then, okay, it's gone. So I don't see it. It's, again, out of sight, out of mind. And they don't really think about what happens after that. What's the afterlife? And is it going to be around for another 200, 300, 500 years maybe? What effect is it going to do for the health of my future generations, of my grandchildren, great-grandchildren? Yeah, all of that stuff is just like out of scope. It's just like, okay, we're only going to focus on that moment when we are consuming. Is it going to make us happy or not? And that is so dangerous. So therefore, my next question for you is actually towards the direction of the documentary. How did it actually come to this documentary? How did they contact you? Did you search them, or did they find you? How did it work?
I was actually in the middle of a campaign for city council here in Seattle, and I just got an email or a phone call, I can't even remember, but from the filmmakers, and they had been already interviewing a bunch of people and asking every time they would interview someone, they would say, do you know anyone else we should talk to? And somewhere along the line, somebody said, or they came across, you should talk to Maren Costa. So they contacted me and did a little interview, just to see what do you have to say? Do we want you in our film? And then they were like, oh my gosh, we would really love to interview you. Would you be willing to come to LA? Because we're there right now interviewing someone else. And for flights, I was like, instead of flying 3 of you here, let's put just me there,
Yeah.
And I told my team, my campaign team, I'm going to be gone for 48 hours and I'll be back, And I got to do this. The working title was Waste. I could tell they were good. And so, so I hopped on a plane, went down for the interview, spent the day with them, and flew back. And then I didn't hear from them. I had no idea. They were like, we don't know who we're going to use. You might end up on the cutting room floor. I'm like, that's cool. It was worth it for me. I don't care. And they're obviously not paying anyone because that would sort of discredit our stories, I suppose.
Yeah.
But and then almost a year later, probably, they said, you kind of, and they called me and they're like, can you go down to the studio and do some voice pickup lines, where we need you to say this thing when we transition and we want to just get these words to help us after we've edited. And I got into that room and they were all there on the video call and they were like, hi, Maren, we've spent so much time with the video for the last 10 months editing. We're so excited to see you. And I was like, okay, and they're like, your story kind of ended up being
the new superstar for them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, your story just kind of ended up being the arc of the movie. Yeah. And I was like, wow, okay. And then I was like, wow, I can't wait to see this thing. I just had no idea. And I didn't get to see it until 24 hours before everyone else did.
Amazing. Wow.
Because Netflix is so tight that way.
Yeah. That is really an incredible story. And so for the listeners who have not seen this documentary yet, it's called Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. And the interesting part about this documentary is that they really split it into different chapters. So you have the chapter of what are they doing, what are big corporations doing to sell more, to put things in such a way that we just as consumers buy. And then you have the second part, which is about how do we hide more, so that the consumers do not know what happens afterwards, and how do you hide certain things so it doesn't look so bad. The next part, which is about waste more, so if you can throw it away and buy again, so that's again the next part that is just like bringing more profits for the companies. So why create a product that is going to last you for so many years, and let's just maybe create a product that lasts you a little bit so that when it, wears off, then we can just sell you another one. It's very easy. And then, of course, comes the lie more part, and then comes the control more. So for me, it was like, wow, this is so nice how they put all those puzzle pieces together. So for you, what was the most surprising or revealing discovery during the making of this documentary? Now that you have seen like the complete documentary, when you've seen it before it was released.
I just think they did a great job striking that perfect message that was just really viscerally impactful for people. Like the visuals that they created of all of the stuff just flooding over skyscrapers. And we get so much out of a picture, and trying to describe it with words just doesn't do it justice. And it really, I think it helped people understand. And then seeing the beaches with all the products and garbage and plastic, and then the big landmine in the Chilean desert that you can see from space of landfill, I guess. Yeah, that was just the really impactful part. Yeah. I think that, I can tell that a lot of people felt that, because I got so many, I still have 700 messages I haven't read of people that DM'd me on every channel.
Amazing.
You were one of them, I'm sure. And it was overwhelming and so amazing at the same time, because that's impact. The movie was actually in the top 10 in 40 countries in its first week out. And I think it performed as a documentary better than any other documentary aside from true crime, which is apparently the hugest documentary category. I didn't know.
Wow. I didn't even hear about that one, but good to know.
No, it's not funny. Who knew?
Yeah. Wow, thanks for sharing that piece. It's so amazing sometimes how you see like only the end product of a documentary, but you do not know everything that is working behind it and how long it takes to create something like this. If you would say, what would be the key message that you hope that the audience would take away from this documentary, and to do like an actionable step that everybody knows, okay, I think I could do that step, what would it be?
That's a great question. I would say that's the one piece where it's like the documentary ends right where you almost wish it would start, which is, okay, now what do I do? And they really didn't put much of that in. And their goal was to document how bad it is. Yeah. And now it's on us to figure that out. And so they did take little clips of each of the people that were being interviewed, and the clip that they took from my interview, which of course I said many more things, but was, when you think you want to buy something, put it in your cart, leave it there for a month. And then if you still, and that is great. That's a very small but very actionable and impactful thing that you can do. But the main thing I would want people to come away with is that it's not about everybody's individual actions unless they're, organized to have impact. The drops only matter when they're all feeding the same wave. Yeah. If you're just scattering them around, you don't have impact. Yeah. So I love it. It's lovely. It'll make you feel better if you make changes in your own life. But if you aren't doing things to bring everybody else along, bring everybody together, and then together we have power. Yeah. So it's building power to really go up against these big corporations. And that's what, as employees, we were able to do, because as employees, we had already power, being valuable, high-paid employees. And you need fewer people. If you only need 1,000 tech workers to make Amazon notice, but you might need 50,000 warehouse workers because they're just easier to replace. And so we all have to think about, what power do we have, and what's the biggest lever we can push together?
Yeah. Exactly. Especially that at the end of the day, there are more of us. Yeah, there are 7 billion of us. Yep. Yeah. So if everybody is somehow going the same direction, and we can show them what is the right way, what is the wrong way, then no corporations can keep up with then later the changing voice of the customer. Yeah, that the customer's voice starts changing, and they want to see more responsibility out of the corporations, and to say, hey, dear corporation, you created so many plastic products last year. What are you doing about that?
Yeah.
What is your plan? Yeah. So,
And that's what I felt at Amazon. I was saying to them when I was still trying to convince them to be better, I was saying, we're externalizing these costs. Customers are eventually going to wake up and realize how destructive Amazon has been, how destructive their own consumption has been, and they're going to be mad. And you're going to lose trust with all of these customers. Yeah. And trust is the hardest thing to build and the easiest thing to lose. And that argument worked when I was trying to get them to do anything else, but it didn't work when I was trying to get them to stop making a mess of this planet.
Yeah. Especially that I have a feeling that the corporations, they try to just push it over to the consumers and say, hey, you guys have the recycling. Why don't you just throw it into the recycling bin? And then the consumers think this is a fantastic solution. I just separate my garbage, put it into the recycling. But then again comes the story that nobody knows, that how much percentage of that recycling is really recycled. Yeah, and it's just like a small percentage. Yeah.
Yep. It's false fixes. That's distraction, deception, just like the movie says. They know exactly what they're doing. They put out these things that make us feel like, oh, okay, we got this. They got that. Someone else has this. It's all okay. And then it's just a lie to get us to keep doing what they want us to do.
Many times the regular consumer or person would think, well, that the government has an eye on it because the government is there to protect us and to take care of us and to be there for our health. And then when you start digging more and start going down some rabbit holes, you're like, wait a minute. And then you start realizing things. And it's like, okay, it's just the opposite what you actually were believing when you were growing up as a young person and when you were still a little bit of, getting to know the world. Yeah. And to think everything that's out there in the supermarket, if it's already a product that's on the shelf, that means it's already tested. Everything must be good. I can consume it. So that's just so scary when you really start finding out more and more. Well, it's so crazy. And one can go in so many directions when it comes to climate. And of course, the climate has a direct impact to our health. And that's why it fits so well to this conversation today with our podcast, because you just cannot separate it. And when you see health, well, our health is only as good as the health of our climate and vice versa. And then if we think about the planet, well, if I want to do something for the planet, I got to do something for my health. But if I do something for my health, so it actually is just all correlated. It's all intertwined.
Yeah. So, as long as you're fighting the root problem, which is really these exploitative, extractive systems. Right now, the concentration of power in the hands of the 0.001%. Anything we do is not going to have a whole lot of impact until we flip that system. If everybody would just focus on that, I think that's where we really need people's time right now is let's change that. And then all these things, we have all the policy proposals and all the technology solutions for our health, for the health of our planet, for all these things, but they don't benefit the people that are in power. And so they sit. And until we bring them down, I'm all about raising the nonviolent collective action army,
Exactly.
Let's go.
I mean, even the awareness for the head of these companies, if you are in the board of directors and they're thinking about their profits and how much revenues they created, but you say, well, if you want to think long term, don't just think about the revenues that I'm doing for this year or for next year, just think about long term. What type of revenues are you going to have if there's no planet to have your company in? There's no people more on the planet because we're just all so sick and dead almost.
Yeah.
So, well, they only think very short term, and that's the unfortunate thing.
Short term, yep. That is one of the biggest problems. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
Short-term profits over anything else. So
exactly. If I think about climate, there's so many categories you can go into. You can go into projects about cleaning the ocean. You can go projects for the air. You can go projects for our clean water, rainforest. There's just so many different topics. The soil, the quality of our soil. If we would prioritize all of that, which are the most critical things when we think about climate that we say, okay, that is really important at the moment? Because I remember when I was younger and when I was in high school, that time it was the topic about the ozone layer. So that was when I started off. I'm like, what? There's problems with that? I didn't even know about this. So I was super interested about that topic. I read everything about it and I got rid of all my sprays and everything that I had at home. I was talking to everybody about it. And then now it's like almost 30 years more or less later, and I can see through the statistics that, things have been improving with our ozone layer. But for that, we have now increased in issues in many other things. So
even climate change.
Yeah.
Because the aerosols used to provide a bit of a buffer.
Yeah.
See, this is why when I think about what can we do, what's the most urgent thing we can do, we need radical systems change. we can go and tinker around the edges and, fix the ozone layer or try to pull some flat. But if we just keep doing the same things that have caused all of these problems, we're just playing whack-a-mole, or like there was a metaphor of a doctor, actually, I remember reading when he was saying, I feel like I'm treating all these symptoms, and it's like I'm standing outside of a building with a tall window and somebody's throwing babies at me, and I'm getting really good at catching the babies and setting them down, catching the babies, setting them down. And then I realized, why don't I go stop the person who's throwing the babies, And that's what we are doing. And until we stop doing that, I think it's going to be too late. We have such a short amount of time to deal with this. We have to go straight for the jugular.
Exactly.
I'm a little bit,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm ready to fight because I'm just so tired of this. Like, oh, we can be nice.
Yeah.
We can be nice, and if we just come up with the next technology, or we'll fix it. And it's like, no, we're all putting all this effort and time, and we're being distracted by the fact that what we really need to fix is the systems.
And that's why I'm so grateful for the conversations that we're having today, because at the end, I think many people have so many other distractions where they do not even maybe realize how bad the situation is with our environment, that everybody's struggling to just get around a month, get all their bills paid. They got to get maybe to the university, or they need to go and get a job. And so they're all just worried about their current situation. But what they do not have in their agenda is, what can I do as an individual for the climate? Because if we put all of our heads together, we can really make a change. Because maybe when I am an elderly person, there might be a different world than the way we know it today. So I think this is definitely something that should be in everybody's agenda. And that's why it's great that we have these type of conversations and these podcasts and the documentaries to start really raising awareness wherever we can. And therefore, my next question for you is more in the direction of climate justice and collective action topic. So what would you say the role of storytelling play in mobilizing collective action for climate justice?
That is something I am working on, exactly for the reason that storytelling is so powerful. Yeah, so I was a user experience designer in big tech, and to do that, you have to know how humans work and what motivates us and what's going to be most likely to sort of grab attention, because, we're all bombarded with so many things. And we make so many of our decisions on a very subconscious level. It's that whole sort of think fast, think slow. It's that first system of thinking that is very emotional and intuitive and fast. If you just start throwing data points or statistics at people, they shut down. You have to first bring them in to what you're saying. With a story is one of the things that we grab onto most. Our brains just work that way. We can absorb them and we actually retain them. And then I always thought, well, what does that mean? What does storytelling mean? I don't know what that means. It literally kind of means you have a protagonist, you have a problem, and then you have a solution, or you have a come to reckoning, and you literally kind of put it into these terms. There's the hero's journey, there's there's these different story scaffoldings, and if you can come up with something that taps into that, it's going to be so much more memorable than just starting with the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I think about the way how it's being received by some people are maybe perceptive to one type of story or one type of message. So maybe the data could come to certain percentage of scientists that are out there, people who are really like into data, or financial people. They're like, wow, look at that. That's the data. Yeah, now you got me. But that's not the great part of the people in the world. So you need to see, how do I manage a story that I can really get into everybody's, I would say, way of receiving that message.
Yep.
And there's maybe other people who are like really very vocal about the environment, or maybe about other topics like, I don't know, being plant-based or whatever topic it is. And then they are, let's say, outside of a restaurant and protesting. And some people might see it. They might say, oh, wow, that must be a really important topic. I'm going to look into it. And others, they just say, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to close my shutters. These people are crazy people. I don't want anything to do with them. So it really is such a delicate thing to see how I'm going to create a story that I can really get everybody more or less on the same page.
Right. It's like you have this whole range of people. There are some people you're never going to reach. And then there's some people who already know. What you really want to hit is that influenceable middle. And that's what I think the documentary did so well. I was saying things for sure in my interview that were like neoliberal capitalism, imperialism, whatever. And they didn't put that in because that's probably going to shut some people down. Like, don't talk to me about my capitalism. And but they told a story. They told 9 stories, or however many of us were in there. And that was just really compelling. And it definitely was one of the most impactful things I think I've ever been a part of, because they told the stories.
Yeah. Time for a quick break to mention that the sponsor of this podcast is Wave Business Excellence Footprint, a digital training company deeply committed to your career development, personal growth, and the well-being of our precious planet. Dive into a wealth of knowledge with over 20 courses available on our website, www.wave-bef.com. Tailored for both managers and employees aspiring to become tomorrow's leaders. One of our best-selling courses is the Presentation and Communication Skills Training, perfect for those creating and delivering presentations in their companies. Whether through video conference or live meetings, if you want to convey your message effectively and do an outstanding job, this course equips you with the skills to be a better creator and presenter. Check out the testimonials on our website. The results speak for themselves. During my time in the corporate world, I often wished I had the opportunity to access such courses at the beginning, making my learning experience quicker. And now, one further topic before we jump back to the conversation. For those of you resonating with the themes of health, happiness, and planet, discover information about our 3-day retreat in Spain by reaching out to my team at the email address hhp@wave-bef.com. You will obtain further information about our life-changing retreat held once a year, together with some of our remarkable podcast guests. Each retreat is unique, leaving you energized with a set of simple tools to take control of your health and happiness sustainably. And the best part, you will be surrounded by like-minded individuals, ending the retreat with a personal action plan shared regularly within the group. How do you suggest people overcome the divisions designed to keep them apart when working towards environmental and social justice goals?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's almost again like the story is a kind of a segue. One of the things we respond to is having kind of a villain that we can point to. And climate change doesn't make a good villain. It doesn't have a face, and we don't relate to it. And what is that? I don't know. It's a bunch of statistics, and I don't even know if it's true. But we do respond to, unfortunately, like, hey, that guy just took all my food. Now I have somebody to channel all of my anger into. And really, we have that villain. It is the multi-billionaires. It is the ultra-rich. They are absolutely kind of responsible for everything bad that's happening right now in our world. And we have to bond together, like the 99.99%. We have so much in common. We all want to be safe. We all want to feel secure. We all want to have food, take care of our loved ones, have health care, education. And if we can come together, and it's happened many times before that people will throw aside all of their differences because they have a common enemy and a common cause. And the minute they kind of defeat that enemy, they can kind of go back to being their divisive selves, or some other enemy will come in and intentionally divide them, because that's what, divide and conquer is the oldest rule in the book for power. So yeah, I think we got to come together as find our commonality.
Absolutely.
Go after the people who are really doing the damage.
I mean, those who are really on the top and they have so much power and so much money. I mean, usually if I think about money, you could do so much bad with money, but at the same time, you could do so many good things with money. So it's about, having the right agenda for them, or they having the right agenda and channeling their money and investment and power in a certain way that it's going to help our future generations, because I'm sure they also are going to have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren at some point of time. So that's where I hope that they just realize it, that, well, maybe I'm going to start channeling my power and money in a certain direction so it could support all of those organizations who are trying to make this world a better place.
Yeah. And you've seen actually, the ex-wives of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos immediately became, some of the biggest philanthropists and they joined the Billionaire Philanthropy Club, where you plan to give away all of your wealth before you die or whatever. We also need a maximum wage. You just can't hoard that many resources. No matter what you're doing with your money, if you're hoarding that many resources, you're hurting more people than you're helping.
Yeah. And for that, we dive into our next question, which is, can you share with us maybe some examples of successful, disruptive collective actions that have led to tangible progress? So that we can give some hope, at least to some of the listeners who say, okay, let's see if there have been some success stories out there.
Oh my gosh, we have so many success stories. And not just from my own stories. History tells us we have women's suffrage, civil rights here in this country, Gandhi's Salt March in India, even on a smaller level, like the Standing Rock protest. I don't know if that made it overseas, but there's just must be some kind of an equation. You need enough people with enough power coming together for a specific goal. It's all about making the power holder have to choose. So here's an example from my own experience. When I was at Amazon, I was going to, for the global climate strike, I had planned that I would speak on the steps of Seattle City Hall to 15,000 people or on all the TV cameras that were there, whatever. And I knew that I would probably get fired for that because Amazon has a very strict external communications policy that says you can't say anything negative or positive about Amazon's business if you're an employee outside of Amazon externally. Wow. And so we went into that knowing that would probably happen. And in anticipation, we had organized 400 Amazonians, as we called ourselves, and they called themselves, 400 Amazon workers, tech workers, to break the external communications policy in solidarity. And so when I did, in fact, get a warning that if you do this again, you'll be fired. So I didn't get fired, but they gave me my first warning, which we thought that was either they're just going to fire me outright or they'll give me a warning. I got the warning, and then we immediately had the 400 people. We published that online. So now we're giving Amazon the choice. Do you want to fire Maren and 400 people, or do you want to fire no one? It's about posing the choice to power, whereby the choice you want them to take is the choice that actually benefits them most. And we have to think strategically. And these are hard things because when you don't have much power, you have to find a way to build a countervailing force of power. So 400 people was enough power. In another situation, it might be, like I said, 5,000 people, or we don't know, 5 air traffic controllers could shut down New York City and make the airline come to the table to negotiate. Mm-hmm. But you might need 5,000 flight attendants, So you have to think strategically about power and build enough power where you can force a choice.
Mm-hmm. That's like playing chess. Yeah, you really need to think, so many steps ahead and to strategically
anticipate. Retaliation, because retaliation will come. We're seeing retaliation now in so many ways in our country. Like the retaliation started when we elected Barack Obama. The right has just been galvanizing for retaliation since then. It's a wave right now, but we knew it was coming. Don't get upset when the retaliation comes because you knew it was coming. It just shows that you're actually having impact. When I got fired from Amazon, eventually then, which I was fine with, I knew that. But when I got fired, it was just a chance to tell everybody else how bad it is, you guys. You can keep your head down and play the game, but none of us are going to have jobs if we don't eventually stand up. None of us are going to have a planet if we don't put a stop to this. Like, it's a way to show even more. Now is the time we all really have to come together and take some risks and be our most courageous selves and fight for everything we love, because everything we love is on the line right now.
The other thing I see, I used to work many years for the corporate world, and now I noticed that a lot of the high performers or people who are like good workers who want to do the best what they can for the company, and they are changing also their mindset a bit. I would say if I look back 25 years when I started in the corporate world, many people didn't really care what the company was doing. Main thing, they had a job and they could pay their bills, they had their salary at the end of the month. But nowadays it's more like through the awareness of documentaries and through other things where they say, do I really want to put my effort and skills to work for that company who's doing that type of outputs for the environment? So now I think those companies who are producing really bad stuff for the environment, they might be struggling even to get high talents because the talents don't even want to work for them anymore. So that's again where I tell a lot of the people who I speak with to say, look, you have such a power, even the power not only of the products that you buy, but who you work for. Yeah. So you can decide, I'm going to work for another company who's doing something good or not. Yeah. So it's your decision.
I would say, though, the power is actually, if you are working for one of the bad companies and you're ready to leave, don't leave without using that power. Organize inside the company. We need people inside who are staying but are aware, and that's happening in all the big companies. I know people organizing in all the big tech companies, oil companies. Like, that is a great source of power. If you're ready to lose your job anyways, why walk away without having an impact first, you know?
Yeah, so true. So when we start looking at addressing the root causes of climate crisis, you've also mentioned that treating the symptoms wouldn't heal the planet. So what would you believe are the root causes of climate crisis and how can we address them?
Yeah. I mean, the root cause is this incredible power imbalance. We have to change these toxic, exploitative, extractive systems. We need systems of regeneration and care. We are in a fixed system. We are in a finite system. We're in a closed system, and we're acting as if it's infinite. It's not. You know, we're already in overshoot. So by the time we get about halfway through the year, we've already consumed the amount of resources that the earth can reproduce in a year. So we're borrowing already from future generations. You know, we have to flip these systems. We've been distracted. You know, recycle. Oh, great. I'm going to take all my energy and sort my garbage and in the meantime feel good about buying more because I know I can just put it in a separate bin and I've done my job, you know. I can measure my own carbon footprint, you know, like the first obviously app to measure your carbon footprint was put out by BP, an oil company. They're trying to make you think it's your problem. You have to fix it. And it's like, no, it's not. It's you guys that have to change. And if you're not going to change, we're going to find a way to make you change. And that's what we need to focus on. And so, you know, if you break that down, I would be fine if you all stop putting any of your effort that you're putting right now into sorting your garbage and go find an organization in your community. And if you don't have one, start one. Go find an organization that is already working on grassroots change. They could be working on grassroots change to solve homelessness, to fight inequality, to, you know, it doesn't matter because they're all connected. Yeah. Go get involved. And like you had mentioned earlier, when people see people outside, when people see a bunch of people protesting, they visually have to see you. You can't work behind the scenes. I mean, some people can. There's a risk being the people out in front. You know, the people out in front are going to be the ones that get fired first, you know? And so some people have to be willing to do that. And you can assess your own tolerance for risk. For me, I knew I could get fired and I would still be able to feed my family the next day. A warehouse worker might not have that same privilege. We have to leverage our privileges in the same way that we in these northern countries need to do more to fix the problem than the global south because we have all the privilege and we've been doing all the damage too. And so assess your privilege, figure out, you know, what networks do you have? How much money do you have? You know, whatever your privileges are. And then what superpowers do you have? Are you really good at writing speeches? Are you good at being that front person who's willing to get fired? You know, are you an artist and you can make signs? Get together with your group. And I always say, turn your I to a we. That's the first step. And then find people who are working together, get involved, and then grow together, and then you can start building bridges to other organizations. There's this amazing woman that I met through the documentary. She contacted me. She's in India, and she just said, I want to start this mission in my town. And she said, I have 8 people. We're going to go out. And she went out, and they started picking up plastic. Wow. And by the time they were done, they had 20 more people that had joined because they were out there doing it. Then this other town hears about what they're doing. They're like, we want to join you. We have 200 people. We want to join your mission. It can happen fast. That's this sort of tsunami thing. You know, you think you're starting small, but it can grow fast. And there's these pockets that are growing all over the community that you're creating with your podcast. You know, there's these pockets everywhere.
And it can be infectious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we can be invincible. Yeah. And we need to do that because we really need some radical systems change pretty fast.
That's right. That's right. I mean, if I think about those statistics that we have been provided by the scientists, to see where's the tipping point for our environment, and it's so scary because sometimes they even say, well, that what we calculated could be that it might even happen sooner than what we thought. It's quite scary, and this is not like something like, in a couple generations from now. This is like something that we are going to see in our lifetime. Yeah, for all of those who are listening to this podcast. Yes.
Yes, it makes me frustrated when I hear people say, but the young people are so passionate. It's like, don't put it on them. This is on us, It's going to be too late for them. I mean, I love it. Yay, I love that they're passionate, but we got to get in the game. Yeah. This big, massive generation of baby boomers and stuff, they need us.
Exactly. I mean, they're going to look at us later and it's like, thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. What did you do? Yeah, what did you do in your lifetime? What did you leave behind?
Yes. That was one of my biggest motivations was I want to be able to look my kids in the eye 20 years from now and hopefully say, wow, we made such massive change. But either way, say, I did everything I could.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a very nice role, and that's the role as a U.S. advisor at workforclimate.org. So what is your current challenges that you have at the moment? And maybe you could just tell us a bit, what is your role and what are you doing there?
One of the best places that you can start organizing is your workplace. That's where most of us have our biggest networks. And so you want to kind of start organizing where people are already sort of organized, like start at your church or your school or your workplace or and workplace is usually our best network. And so again, working inside your company to build strength in numbers. And you can start with the polite asking your company to do better. Some, you don't have to come out swinging. You can find out maybe they will be convincible. Not everybody is as entrenched in the system as Amazon is, where if they try to change, they pretty much don't have a viable business anymore. And so they're going to be pushing back as much as possible. But if you can change your company or your whole workplace, that's much more change than you can make on your own. So that's the sort of idea behind Work for Climate. And there are great resources on that site if you want to start organizing in your workplace. I wrote a feature that kind of documents more of once you've kind of tried everything, like by asking permission, But most of the time when you start asking for permission, you're going to get concessions that are like, yes, we support you putting paper cups in the micro kitchens at work. That's another distraction, kind of a false fix, makes you feel good, but doesn't have a lot of impact. And so when you really start to ask for something that the company doesn't want to do, that's when you'll know you're actually going to be making a change. Yep. Because we need to do things that they aren't already willing to do. If they're willing to do it, it's probably not that impactful. I mean, especially in the case of Amazon. Like if you have an employer that just really didn't get it, and they're like, wow, you educated me and now I'm going to do everything I can.
Exactly.
Yay.
Yeah.
But if anyone that you're working for is actually, unfortunately, trying to make a profit, we're all stuck in this system where if we don't make profit, we lose market share, and then we go out of business. And so whatever we would have done to make the world better wouldn't be in place anyways, because now we're not even in business. Yeah. And that's the sort of ends justifies the means, reasoning that everybody's making. Yeah.
And I think when you're an employee in one of those companies, it's sometimes even tricky to find out if your company is not doing greenwashing, because sometimes from the front, and you say, oh, look at that. In the products that they are creating, you have like a nice, happy image, and there's like the sunshine in the back, the blue sky, and the packaging is maybe became a greener color. Yeah, so it just gives like such a nice look, and you're thinking, oh, wow, that actually my company is doing something for climate and for the environment. But if you start digging deeper and just to say, okay, what's a little bit further, not just look what's on the surface, but just put your goggles on and just dive a bit deeper and see if it's still looking so bloomy. Yeah, so I think that's another interesting topic where I think not everybody is so aware that there is this thing called greenwashing.
I wasn't aware. I was at Amazon drinking the Kool-Aid, believing their story that e-commerce is greener than, regular commerce, things like that. And then once you realize that you just can't believe anything, you have to do your own research and investigate. I mean, that's what I started doing. And then I realized, there's these rating scales where they rate corporations on how well they're actually doing against their climate commitments or whatever. Amazon was getting an F and is still getting an F, I'm sure, on every rating scale. They sound like we bought the most sustainable energy. They have these great stories that I'm sure most people think, wow, yay, I can keep shopping at Amazon because clearly they're doing, wonderful things for the climate, and they can really, and same with Microsoft, there was a group working at Microsoft to try to ask them to be better. And Microsoft did this very savvy thing where they said, wow, thanks for telling us. We didn't realize that these deals that we're making with the big oil companies to give them AI to help them dig up more oil were really causing this much damage. Now that you've told us, we'll make a promise. We won't make a deal with any oil company that doesn't already have climate goals in place. And then, you think, yay, okay. And then you find out, wait a minute, how many oil companies will they not be able to make deals with now because that company doesn't have climate goals? It's like none. It makes absolutely no difference. So they can go around and say, like, we don't work with companies who don't have climate goals. It's like, okay, everybody has climate goals, And so you really have to look carefully. And in fact, at this point, I would just assume if they're benefiting from the existing systems, they probably know exactly what they're doing and what they need to do and what they need to keep doing and what they can't do to continue benefiting. And so whatever they're saying, watch what they do, not what they say.
Yeah, that's right. That's powerful. Now that we're getting to the end of our podcast and our conversation, let's see if we can put some hope to some of the audience, to all of these actions that we are doing at the moment and all of the great things that you're doing, Maren. So what would you say are the things that give you hope for a more sustainable future at the moment?
The things that give me hope are, there's decent research to suggest that it only takes 3.5% of the population to be actively engaged in the fight. And when that happens, we have never failed to make significant change.
Wow.
So don't count yourself out. We absolutely can do this. It's people power. People power works. There's so much proof it works. That's what we need to do. And don't get disillusioned. Your drop does matter when you use your drop strategically.
Absolutely.
Put it in the right place.
Exactly. Wow, that's well said. Before we close, do you have a final message that you would like to give to the listeners? But maybe something that you say, okay, maybe this will stick.
I would say this can be heavy, and start with self-care. Because if you're not strong, then none of us are strong. And don't feel bad about self-care. If you get overwhelmed, acknowledge, like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. What can I do to take care of myself so that I can come back to this fight? It is a fight, and it's not going to happen overnight. And we all need to really, put your own oxygen mask on first. And then we will all be stronger. We all have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves and giving ourselves some of the love that we're trying to send out to the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think if you give yourself more self-love, then, hey, maybe you need less external things to make you happy.
Right?
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get your dopamine in a different way.
That's right. Yeah. So if you can get it through that self-love, either through meditation or through any other way that you say, I'm going to dedicate this for myself, like quality time. I'm going to go for a walk in nature. I'm going to go for a swim or something. And somehow you realize, like, wow, this thing of making me feel happy from the inside is producing such an effect that I don't need to get another handbag or another pair of shoes, because I'm happy just going now in the forest or just being without shoes in the beach, or, just those simple things in life. And sometimes even just being more minimalistic, it's going to be bringing more happiness to ourselves and more health to the planet. Yeah.
Yep. Eating healthy food, getting sleep.
Yeah.
There's so much we can do to nurture ourselves, and then we have more strength to nurture the world.
Exactly, absolutely. And I think if people are listening to this and you're in some senior management in some company, if you nurture yourself, then you're also going to make better decisions. Your decision making will be a little bit more grounded than when you are tired and you are aggravated or in a specific emotional state where it's not going to have a good outcome with your decision making. So therefore, that's another thing. If you give love to yourself, also the way you decide on things is going to be much better. Therefore, my last question for today, and it's the same question I ask all my guests in all these episodes, is what is your definition of happiness?
I think happiness comes when we are such a big part of that is we're taking care of ourselves. we're doing things that make us happy. If we sit around and we're doing tons of things that, like, we're working so hard and we hate our job and we might be making money, but you're not going to be happy. You have to actually do things that make you happy to be happy. And then, I think we humans, we want to have a sense of purpose. And I think we've been really distracted, social media, and we're getting separated from the things that actually make humans feel like we are rooted to something, we are a part of something, we have a purpose. So just trying to get back to that. And I think all of these things that will actually solve the problem, it's like you're saying, the self-love and the finding a community, building a community, these will help solve the problem as well as help us all be happier.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Maren, for this lovely conversation and insightful. I'm sure that there are a lot of learning nuggets for many people who have listened to this. And where can we find you? If they would like to find out more about the work that you do, which social media channels can we find you?
Oh, every social media. I actually have somebody doing social media for me now so that I'm no longer a bottleneck. Nice. So that is very helpful. And then I also will have a website soon, and it'll be MarenCosta.com.
Perfect.
So, and then you can see the speaking engagements and whatever.
Very nice.
If anyone's going to be at Change Now in Paris, I'm going to be there speaking. So
fantastic. Wow, that's really great. So I will be putting all of that into our show notes. Yes. And thank you so much, Maren, for this conversation we had today. I'm so grateful for this conversation, Maren. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. It's been really fun and hopefully impactful.
Yeah, I hope when we get to do maybe our next episode, we will be already elderly persons. Yeah, we're going to be like all gray hair, and we're going to say, hey, we did it. Yeah, we did it.
Yes. We have to envision that future.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So then looking forward to our next episode in a couple of decades. Thank you, Maren. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What an inspiring conversation with Maren. From her incredible work with Amazon employees for climate justice to her insights on the power of collective action, Maren is truly leading the charge for a more just and sustainable world. We discussed so much today: how we can challenge consumerism, hold corporations accountable, and make real change through grassroots movements. Maren's story is a powerful reminder that each one of us has a role to play in addressing the climate crisis and building a better future. If you found this conversation inspiring, I encourage you to keep exploring ways you can get involved in the fight for climate justice and workers' rights. And don't forget to check out the documentary called Buy Now: The Shopping Conspiracy for an eye-opening look at the issues we discussed. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, change starts with all of us. Stay engaged, take care, and until next time, big hugs everyone.